Thank you, everyone, for coming today. My name is Claude Jones, and I am the founder and CEO of San Diego Tech Hub. We probably have some old timers that have been conduits for quite some time, and we have some new folks on the call. So I want to spend just a few moments talking about what San Diego Tech Hub is all about and why we're here and what we're doing. First and foremost, San Diego Tech Hub is a community. And we are a community of people that are looking to help drive positive change. And so on the right-hand side, you're going to see the words connect, inform, and empower. And that's really what we stand for. And the idea is that we want to connect businesses, nonprofits, educators, technology, or just professionals in general. And we inform them through just giving back, sharing our knowledge and expertise with other folks, and through the products and services that we offer, in hopes that we can inspire and empower people to do good in their lives and to pay it forward to help keep that circle going. If you like what you heard and everything that's going on, join the movement with San Diego Tech Hub. We have so many different ways that you can connect with us to get plugged in and updated on everything. I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to turn it over to our MC for the evening, our moderator and guest, Danny Cohan.
Thank you very much.
Our moderator and San Diego Tech Hub board member. Sorry, Danny.
I'll take whatever you call me. It's all good. Thank you for the warm intro, Claude. Hope everyone's having a fantastic week so far. So I'm not technical, so I'm going to try my best to make sure I don't make any errors or mistakes. So I've already given myself a kind of, icebreaker there. So here we go. I have closed everything down on my screen, so there shouldn't be anything that you're going to see that you wouldn't want to see. But here we are. Let me bring that up. So welcome to Hacking the Recruitment Process, Shifting to a New School Mindset. We will have around a 45-minute panel discussion with our fabulous panelists that I'm going to introduce very, very shortly. We will try to, apologies, let me just go back. Obviously, I'm already, I knew it would happen. And then we will try to save around 10 to 15 minutes for Q&A. Now, what I would hope people could do is send me in the chat box a private message versus to everybody else, because I'm assuming through the chat, through the discussion, people will make some comments and so forth, and I hope you do. But obviously then I may lose the question. So if you can send it to me directly, that would be fabulous. So according to a survey conducted by Career Arc of more than 1,200 job seekers and professionals, 60% of the candidates said that they had a poor experience trying to apply for a job, from submitting resumes, going through the interview process, and having clear insights on next steps. Now, as a recruiter, I'm pretty sure that happens all the time, and I'm fully aware that it does. So in today's age of keywords, algorithms, and virtual interviews, the entire recruitment process has become transactional, even further heightened with COVID, overly biased and disconnected truly from reality. As a result, qualified candidates are being passed on, as companies waste a lot of time and money searching for the perfect employee. So it's definitely time for a change. So we're going to focus on 5 key themes today. The first one will be some discussions around the impact of biased recruiting and interview processes. I know you can see this, but I'm still going to read it out. The myth of the perfect candidate will be theme 2. Then we would talk around the importance of writing an inclusive job description. And I'm not going to call anyone out, but I may try an example of really what is a inclusive, exclusive job spec on the market, the power of becoming a proactive job seeker, and what role should diversity play in hiring practices. So with no further ado, I'm going to introduce the wonderful panelists, and I hope when I do introduce them, you'll see their faces and they'll be able to come alive. So firstly, we have Emma Sebastian, Technical Program Manager / Scrum Master at University of California. Emma is a dynamic IT leader specializing in business applications development, delivery, and support. She has worked in some of the top San Francisco Bay Area organizations for more than 20 years, and she currently manages applications to support the University of California, San Francisco, one of the world's leading research and medical education institutions. She is really passionate about mentoring young professionals and women in technology. Then we have Sheri Byrne-Haber, Accessibility Architect at VMware. A lot of you may know Sheri is a prominent global subject matter expert in the field of disability and accessibility in the business and education settings. I also know this is her 8th event literally in the last week. So she's been very busy because it's the month for accessibility. And she's also recently authored Find Your Accessibility Compass. She is best known for launching disability programs, digital accessibility programs at multiple Fortune 200 companies, including McDonald's, Albertsons, and VMware, as well as consulting on government accessibility. Her award-winning Medium blog summarizes legal cases and issues facing people implementing accessibility programs, and she is also an active member of several accessibility committees and nonprofits, helping drive and communicate the evolution of accessibility standards. Her first book, called Giving a Damn About Accessibility, was released last week, so I expect all of you to download it on Global Accessibility Awareness Day, and is available for free at accessibility.uxdesign.cc. Thank you, Sheri. Thank you, Emma, for joining. And of course, last but definitely not least, Claude Jones, Senior Director of Engineering at Walmart Global Tech, and our very own founder of San Diego Tech Hub. In addition, Claude is a strong advocate for paying it forward. In his spare time, Claude runs the Elevate Foundation, an organization he started focused on giving back to the community by helping others in need. He has donated over $100,000 in various schools, nonprofits, and charitable organizations in need. He started the Practical Leadership Guide blog, where he offers services for motivational speaking. You could have told me that before I joined, mate, because it would have helped. Life coaching and thoughts on common sense leadership. And Claude is also Claude, it depends which country you're in, is also the founder of San Diego Tech Hub, an organization focused on connecting businesses, organizations, and individuals to build a stronger San Diego tech community through collaboration, and what we are doing today. And finally, myself, Danny Cohan. I am a 20-year recruiter from London. So obviously this isn't a West Texan accent, even though I reside in Austin. I've used that joke every time. So again, apologies if you've heard it before. I moved from London to Amsterdam, and now, as I mentioned, living in Austin. I'm also a board member at the San Diego Tech Hub. I'm co-founder of Breaking the Glass, which is one of the largest women in tech communities. I'm an advisor to Austin Community College, and I know I've got a few people on today from there. So love you guys, happy you joined. And I really, truly want to give back and drive equality through things like this to kind of level up and skill up the world and try to help as much as I physically can. So being a recruiter, this is obviously a very hot topic. So I'm very excited to go into the session right now. So the first topic, the impact of biased recruiting and interview processes. So as you can see, did you know 42% of traditional interviews fail due to bias of interviewers? And 73% of job seekers say the process of looking for a job is one of the most stressful events in life. It really is, as well as hosting any event. Just thought I'd let you guys know. In a recent study by Joy Bolamwini, a computer scientist and founder at the Algorithmic Justice League, where we've heard horror stories about AI, machine learning, racial and gender biases, light-skinned individuals' error rate was no more than 1%. Yet darker skinned were around 34%. So let's kick things off with you, Emma, if that's okay. How do you feel about the new world we're in and the systems being implemented to hire without bias?
Well, thank you, Danny. That was a great intro. That is a loaded question. So to give context on where we are, I want to compare it to where we were 20 years ago, or even like 10 years ago. So nowadays we have more tools, more job search engines. We have different platforms where we can review companies, so we get to know them better. We get a glimpse into the benefits they offer, work conditions, diversity of workforce. And those are really beneficial to job applicants. But by the same token, more organizations are now using different variations of applicant tracking system. And being in software myself, I know that inherently these products will inherit the biases that the people who created them have, or the biases of the people who configure them, or the biases of the people who are using them. We'll tackle, I know we'll tackle that more in the next hour, but looking back in 2020, I want to highlight two things. One, that remote work can be very effective, contrary to previous management fears. And two, that we uncovered all kinds of disparities in healthcare, education, and also in employment. So according to Microsoft, flex work is here to stay. And according to LinkedIn, remote work is very attractive to women, the Gen Zs, and those without degrees. 2020 saw that women are hardest hit by the pandemic, not only in terms of net job losses, but also in terms of the strain on them for co-educating their kids in online learning and providing care to anyone in the family that got sick.
Yeah.
So bringing us here today, I think we are in an inflection point. There's this great opportunity staring right back at us. And with all that we've learned, I think it's about time that we shed off this linear, traditional, this is how we've always done it thinking, and revisit how we can make this recruiting produce outcomes that includes everyone, that is more reflective of the customers we serve.
What a great answer. Thank you so much, Emma, for that. That was fantastic. Does anyone else have any comments on the panelists? Otherwise, I'll go into the next question.
Sure. So I'll take a piece of that answer. I think that people fail to realize that bias can come in through multiple places. So your data set can be biased, your programmers can be biased, your rule set can be biased, your job descriptions can be biased. And when we're talking about bias, and I'm making air quotes around that word, we're really talking about people who belong to any underrepresented community. So people with disabilities, women, people of color. If you, the hiring manager, say, I only want Stanford grads for this job, you've automatically pretty much guaranteed that you're going to hire a white or Asian male. It's just vastly more likely that that's the pool of candidates you're going to draw from if that's the biased rule that you've set out for your recruiting. If your applicant tracking system says, I don't want anybody that's been out of work for more than 3 months to make it to the screening process, you're automatically discriminating against women and people with disabilities because they're far more likely to have gaps on their resumes than other individuals. So when we talk about bias, we're not just talking about a single thing. It is sneaky and it is everywhere.
I agree. Sheri, just carrying on with you, if that's okay. So I'd love to ask you this question. So in February, the US Bureau of Labor Statistics releases regular employment report, and unemployment rate for people with disabilities is now up to 80%. So that's 3 times more likely if you have a disability, you won't have a job. I'd love to know what people can do to kind of solve this problem.
Well, it's a little bit like the bias. Everybody has a role to play. It's not just one thing that's going to solve the problem. It's a combination of a whole lot of things. So, for example, if you want to hire people with disabilities at your company, you need to make sure that the tools that you're using at your company can be used by people with disabilities. So that means getting the procurement department involved and making sure that they're asking about accessibility when they're looking for new tools, and making sure that their supplier diversity program includes disability as a dimension of supplier diversity. Your communications people, when they're posting to social media, they need to make sure that their stuff is accessible. For me, having a congenital disability and having lived a long time before the ADA was passed, and also having a daughter with a disability, it's the school system. We have some states that that have 80% dropout rates for children in special education programs. If they don't finish high school, they're not going to go to college. If they don't go to college, they're not going to go to grad school. So there's a funnel problem with the pipeline that really starts with the school system. But what larger companies can do is they could sponsor, for example, boot camps to train people with disabilities on how to do programming. I'm working with a couple of those right now to provide the accessibility lens on how their participants learn how to write code. Doing, meeting with school system, school groups and colleges. Every college has a disabled students group. The general identification rate for people with disabilities in the US is 18%. 21% of people in college identify as having a disability. And the growth, the uptick, is largely in the mental health arena. So talking to those groups, getting in front of them, asking them, what do you need to be supported in your roles going forward after you graduate? That's invaluable information.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, there's so much we can do. And as you said, it starts from the very root of the problem. When, as children, it's like how we learn and how we create that sort of environment. On the flip side of hiring, there's also a bad hire, which can cost $250,000 a year for companies. When I was looking at research, and I'm not going to name the person because I think they're actually with us today. I've been doing some coaching with someone who is a student, and this person was looking for a junior software developer job, went through 5 rounds of interviews with 7 different people, and still got no'd at the end. So there's clearly some issues with recruitment in its general. I mean, that's a lot. And then you've got to consider they're probably going to see 6 other people on average is how many you probably usually see before you hire someone. 6 times that many hours, that does not sound efficient. And I think their biggest issue was around efficiencies. So Claude, I'm going to ask you this. From your experience as a hiring manager, firstly, how does this all sound to you? And what changes can managers make to really make it easier for people and processes and churn to be prevented? That was a lot in one question there, so apologies, but I expect a lot from you. So you're on mute. I didn't think I'd have to say that to you today, but hey, you're on mute.
Yeah, I am on mute there. Yeah, thanks, Danny. The process that you described is a serious problem, and unfortunately, I think it's commonplace. We actually struggle with the same issue at Walmart, to be honest with you. And I've been trying to, with this topic for the day, I've actually been challenging my team on what we can do to kind of hack the process. We have 7 people, 7 open recs that we need to hire in the next 2 months. So for those that are looking for software engineering jobs, hit me up and I'll talk with you directly to see if you can get fit. It's a little plug there. But I came up with, been doing some research, and I came up with what I call the 5 Bs. So this is what I'm currently trying to put into practice. And it'll be interesting to see kind of what the community thinks about it. So the first B is be results focused. So instead of creating a job description that focuses on requirements and what the ideal candidate would be, I want to switch it up a bit to focusing on outlining what the role will actually be required to do. So imagine now if you had a job description that focused on these milestones, like what you do in month 1 or month 3 or month 6. And then for each of those milestones, or each of those, milestones, you have certain goals, what that candidate would be responsible for, what they would own, and then what success would look like. And the thought process behind this is that it's kind of switching the way that the candidate looks at that job description. Instead of meeting these requirements that sometimes are a bit unrealistic, having someone look at a set of goals or milestones and feeling confident that they can actually accomplish the things that are there, that they can do the objectives. So that's one thing, being sort of results focused in how you craft the resume. The second B is be personal. And so, typically you have the recruiter that does a screening and they try to figure out the fit before that kind of goes to the manager. I'm thinking, even though it might be a bit more work for my managers, how can we be more personable? Taking that resume that they've crafted, get on the phone with that candidate, have that personal connection, and then determine like, hey, are they the right fit? Because you can't get a whole bunch of stuff on paper, and having secondhand information passed to you, it doesn't solve anything. It's like the telephone game. Sometimes things can be a bit obscure. But even if that candidate is not the right fit, imagine now turning that around as a mentorship opportunity or a coaching opportunity or a network opportunity where that candidate is like, I wasn't a good fit for that, whatever they were looking for, but this manager helped guide me to figure out what I was missing, what I could do, what was going on. What a great feeling that would be. And it just helps establish a connection that you typically don't have today. So that's the second B. The third B I have, and sorry, it's a little long-winded, being thorough. And the idea is having these multi-day interview process, like the example that you gave, shifting to a day in the life, to where based on that job description that was created, imagine now having a specific task to where that candidate comes in and they're working in a team environment to where they get to see what the brainstorming, the collaboration, the implementation, looking at, the strengths and weaknesses. Is this person teachable? But how much learning can come from a full day session of just a day in the life on the job? If the candidate passes that, or if they don't, notify the person, you made it, great, next step. You didn't make it, here's why, give it a feedback opportunity. I don't know how many companies just choose not to get back and they ghost candidates. It's just ridiculous. I don't understand why people do that. But now if that candidate is talking and if that candidate is there talking with the manager, I think there's an opportunity for that to be kind of like a little mini session where they're able to provide feedback. Imagine if you can talk about career goals, what's going on, and see if this is a right fit for both the manager and the associate, that's going hired. And then once that decision's made, the last B is be quick. Don't wait and say, hey, this candidate's good, but let me interview 5 or 6 other candidates. If you find someone that's good, hire them, bring them on board, solve the problem. So those are my 5 Bs that I'm looking at implementing, and I'll let you know how it goes in the next 2 months.
I was going to say we need an update in 2 months. It'll be part 2 of this, or part 2 based upon Claude. So I'm well up for that. I can't wait to hear the results. Sheri, I can see you've jumped in. Talk to me.
Well, I was just going to mention that at VMware we've just started doing a trial on those task-oriented job descriptions as opposed to the aspirational ones. Because what you find is that underrepresented minorities tend to self-select out. They'll say, oh, well, I can't use those 3 tools, so I'm not going to apply for that job, when they could have been a perfectly good candidate. I think, hopefully I don't botch this, but I remember saying that women think they have to meet 100% on the job description to apply for it, and men think 60% is good enough. And of course, disability, gender, they're all intersectional. So I can't tell you where the female part of my identity stops and the disabled part of my identity begins. It's all just one great big ball of yarn.
Love it. Thank you, Sheri. Emma, did you have any comments on that before we move on to the topic 2?
Sure. I just want to say that I've also seen hiring teams focus on trying to make a copy of themselves because they feel awesome and they feel like, okay, let's get another awesome person here. I think the focus should be really, how do you strengthen your team? How do you strengthen the organization? What competency can we use more of? Maybe we can use more people that can actually speak with customers, not in tech lingo, but in business lingo. Maybe we need more of that. Maybe we need more people who can analyze data. But I've seen this again and again in different organizations. They tend to look for someone who's a copy of the person who just left or a copy of themselves. But there should be a focus on what will make the team stronger. And I feel like that's an important key piece that we're missing.
Absolutely, absolutely. People want to stay in their comfort zone and they're more comfortable with what they know than they don't. But having that diversity of thought and being able to be challenged and being open about it makes such a difference to organizations. And I don't have the percentile. I've got a lot of percentage facts today, but I don't have the percentage of which companies are more successful. But we know from so many stories that more diverse people, more diverse thinking, more diverse thoughts, more diverse challenges around these sort of things create a much better organization. Thank you so much, all 3 of you so far on topic 1. I think we did a great job there. So we're going to move on to number 2. Again, reminder, guys, please, if you have any questions, we will have a Q&A at the end. And please put it into the chat directly to me. I can see there's 23 messages, but because I'm so untech savvy, I refuse to click it and then ruin everything. So I'm going to go to that when the event comes to the end. I'm sure I'll get a text message from someone saying, Danny, you know it's very easy, but I'm not even going to try to mess this up. So moving on to the topic 2. Here we go. Nice picture. So did you know, as you know, this is the myth of the perfect candidate, The number one unrealistic expectation from hiring managers is the search for the ideal candidate that fits their company like a glove. The missing link, 63% of traditional interviews fail in assessing candidates' transferable and soft skills. There is a myth that a unicorn exists, as in the perfect candidate. So I'd love to go straight to you, Emma, and ask you about someone who works in, what's your take on this? Because I want to show a little picture actually before I do of all these people. And I won't know if you've actually answered this correctly, but what do all these people have in common? And I'm assuming someone's going to comment on the chat box. There's no prize, apart from maybe a cuddle when I come down to San Diego and see you, or Canada if you're over there. Okay, so I hope someone's answered it, but similar to me, they either dropped out of college or never went to college. That's not saying that that's the right way to go. I'm just saying that there are clearly examples of those successful, and obviously someone like you, Emma, who is in the university. I'd love to hear your take on that, because according to the Bureau of Labour Statistics, I'm going to bring some more facts out. Of the 30 projected fastest growing jobs between 2010 to 20, 5 do not require a high school diploma, 9 require a high school diploma, 4 require an associate degree, 6 require a bachelor's degree, and 6 require a graduate degree. What's your take on that, Emma?
Yeah, I've seen those job descriptions too, and sometimes I'm really floored why those are requirements, especially for tech jobs that I know don't require that level of education. For transparency, I do have a degree, and I think it has come in handy for me in the tech sector. And I'm also encouraging my daughter to pursue a degree. That being said, though, especially in the tech space, I have worked alongside many talented, incredible engineers and IT personnel who don't have a degree, who have degrees that are totally unrelated to computer science, like theater or political science, English majors. So I think there's a general assumption, and I don't know, when I started my career, I don't think that's pervasive, but maybe I'm wrong, but nowadays there's a general assumption that technical aptitude is a monopoly of those with a certain background. So let me tell you, on the flip side, I have worked with an HR person that was able to explain to me a new data model that we're having very articulately and very clearly, way better than the data architect himself. So to me, it's about aptitude. It's not about the degree. There's a lot of skills and talents that are needed in the tech space. So I am also, like you, sometimes really surprised by the requirements that are posted in job descriptions.
Yeah.
Oh, can I add one more?
Please.
I want to share with the community about this paper from IBM. It's from the IBM Institute for Business Value, and the white paper is about the evolution of technology. This was written in 2019, that as more innovations take place and as technical developments and industries are redefined, the tech domain is requiring new and emerging skills. Particularly, the paper recommends that the propensity to learn should be encouraged and be a key requirement in hiring. So here they're emphasizing potential and a growth mindset over any other technical skills.
Love it. Thank you, Emma. That was a great answer. And I love that you cited IBM around that as well. That's amazing. So Sheri, I'm going to ask you, what are transferable skills that are often overlooked in your view?
So to me, Leon, I've been in tech now for more than 3 decades. Soft skills are much more useful than hard skills. If you're going to be in the area of accessibility, for example, you know, you need to learn how to use influence. You need to learn how to use persuasion. You need to be able to explain things really well, like Emma said. And those are much, much harder to teach than Java. Java you can learn out of a book. So I tend to value soft skills over tech skills. The one thing that I really see shooting up in popularity is that recruiters, rather than trying to talk to the candidates and find out how good they are, is they're sending people through, talent assessment portals. Okay, haven't found one yet that's accessible. They don't work for people with autism. They don't work for people with attention deficit disorder. They sure as heck don't work for people who are blind. So if you're only using a portal to do talent assessment, you're automatically discriminating against all your potentially disabled candidates.
Unbelievable. And at least there's a good business idea for this community now as well. So I appreciate that, Sheri. Thank you. Claude, I'm going to be careful with my words when I ask you a question. So apologies up front if I get this wrong or rude. So you've been in the technology industry for over 15 years and you don't have a degree in software engineering. You don't seem like the perfect candidate to be a tech leader. I'm still a board member. How did you overcome the obvious perception?
I just want you to know, Danny, that I'm extremely offended by the question that you've just asked me, and I'm going to now drop the call. Yeah, man, you know, I definitely do not consider myself the perfect candidate by any means. And I consider myself the right fit with the right attitude, but I didn't always think that way. And my perspective changed when I had my first kind of real interview. And I've told this story a few times, so for those that have heard it, just please be entertained. I had the opportunity to interview with this company. This is back in the early 2000s, called Kayenta. It was a small little group, and they were looking at building some internal tools on a Java stack, and they had some UI work. And a friend had referred me to this company to go on for this interview. Now, I had no formal training. I had a degree in business analysis, but it was like a business degree. I'd taken some programming courses in college, but I didn't have a computer science degree. But I learned HTML, JavaScript, had some knowledge about Java. And I sat on this interview panel, and the questions that I received was, hey, what's the difference between Java and JavaScript? What are EJBs and how are they used? You know, what are JSPs and what is their life cycle? And so I'm sitting here with this little binder of HTML projects that I had. For those that remember Code Fusion, I had built this Code Fusion app in college, and I had this on my laptop. And so I'm fumbling my way through this interview, not really knowing what the heck was going on. And after about 20 minutes, I was like, look, his name was Bruce. I'm like, Bruce, I'm struggling. I don't know what's happening. I felt defeated. And he turned to me and he says, you know what? I think you're the right fit for this job. And I don't know if he could see the expression on my face, but you know, I was like, what's going on? I said, why? He says, well, there's 3 qualities, 3 character traits, I guess. One, you were very honest in the interview. You know, I didn't try to BS my way through this thing. He says you were proactive. You know, I brought my little portfolio and I had some things, and he could see that I had the potential to be, you know, stealing Emma's word, I had the potential to be something. And he says, I just love your attitude. And he says, you might not have the skills today, but if I put you in an environment that would allow you to grow and learn, and you're willing to be challenged, I know that you'll be successful no matter what you do. And he gave me a contracting job. And I learned so much on that job. And that really was a foundation that, you know, for someone that came from a non-traditional background to leading the Walmart Labs office out here in California, and just my career overall, is something that I never thought possible, but he helped pave that way. Someone believed in me. And it was honestly the first time that someone didn't hold me to this unrealistic standard and was willing to give me a chance based on my strengths. And I promised myself that if I was ever in a leadership position, that I would try to create the same opportunities for other people, the underrepresented, those that have biases against them, to try to create an environment very similar to the one that I had. So I'm not perfect, but I'm the right fit with the right attitude.
Just to add one thing to that, Claude, because we're doing a psychological safety program right now at VMware. I feel that type of leader gives you the freedom to take risks. Because if you are scared to death, if you make the slightest mistake, that people are going to realize that they shouldn't have hired you and cut you loose, that's not the way to create innovation. So I think it's really important to take that approach for a number of reasons. I
wholeheartedly agree. Living proof.
It is. And before we move on to the next topic, I was going to move on, but talking about innovation and talking about how companies can evolve in this new world we're in, have any of you seen companies evolve? Have you seen companies be more innovative? There's a war on talent right now, and companies need to be ahead of the game. So have any of you seen that more recently?
I personally have. I think one of the things that I've seen Walmart do with COVID in particular, now talent can be sourced anywhere. I think now that, you can find great people, requiring them to move on site, things are going on, relaxing some of the environments on, what does it mean to truly work remote? What is the definition of being talented and a good fit? How do we make sure that we have the right infrastructure to help support, collaboration in a virtual setting? Really kind of double downing and investing in that has been something that I've seen this progressive change, at least within Walmart, with its 15,000 engineers that it has to support. I mean, it's slow, but you're starting to see some change. And even the new job that I recently have at Walmart, before COVID, I would have had to move to Bentonville to get it. Now I'm able to work from San Diego and still be able to drive and execute. And, the travel is not going to be as frequent, but it's proving the model that remote work can work. So, and that's helping to retain talent. So I think that's an innovative step towards at least something being adaptive in this new world.
Thank you, Claude. Sheri.
So one thing I'm starting to see a lot of with larger companies is larger neurodiversity focused hiring initiatives, where you really think about, okay, what do people with autism need to show off at their best? And the answer is they need to get comfortable with the situation. They need structure. So, SAP, I believe, originally founded something called the Autism at Work program. And we now, VMware works with an organization called Disability In to structure some of our autism recruiting initiatives. So that is something where they're doing week-long or even 2-week-long boot camps specifically with neurodiverse individuals. We had, I want to say, more than 700 applications for our last cohort.
Amazing.
Where we could take 6. So clearly there's a need.
Absolutely. Emma, before I move on, do you have any comments on this at all?
Well, I'm a strong proponent of cognitive diversity. And cognitive diversity to me is not just about making sure you have the number of all the colors of the skin or a balance in gender. I believe it should come from different perspectives, different experiences, and different perspective on how to look at things. I've seen job descriptions that says preferably in the healthcare industry, or preferably in the education industry, or preferably in the utility industry. And I think that's putting the filter before you can even look at what your what your talent pool is. I think it's limiting that where you're casting the net. I am perplexed by that, and that will actually potentially lead to homogeneous thinking down the road, because you're in the same industry, you're just recycling the same people, especially if your industry is smaller. So yeah, I am a champion of cognitive diversity in my workplace, and I try to challenge assumptions that are in place.
Beautiful, I love it. I mean, we've come a long way, but we've still got so far to go. Thank you, everyone, so far. So moving on, and it's funny because we're talking a lot about job descriptions, and timing-wise, we're now onto that part. So the importance of writing an inclusive job description. Now, Sheri, you mentioned earlier, Forbes recently stated that men apply for a job when they meet only 60% of the qualifications. We think we can, you know, do the rest, but women only apply if they meet 100% of them. Many experts attribute the difference to women's lack of confidence in their abilities and men's more cavalier approach to a prescribed job description, as well as their greater sense of swagger about their capabilities. No, I want to just show a picture to the community. I mean, how many of you people have seen this or similar to this? Now, you can comment yes, etc. I've seen specifically this one. I mean, you're looking for X amount of experience, but actually you're looking for everything and anything to kind of fill 4 roles. We want employers who want 20 years experience before the age of 21. It's mind-numbingly crazy what people are looking for. And then they don't hire the right person. So given this, Emma, I actually want to ask you the question again. I want to go back to you if that's okay. What do you agree with that stat in your field?
Oh yeah, 100%. Majority of tech spaces and IT organizations are male dominated, that I've seen. Yeah. Very seldom would I see an organization that seemed to have a well-balanced or close to well-balanced variety of people. Let me tell you though, this is a sad and dramatic highlight of the imbalance. So I attended a cloud conference in San Francisco in 2017, I think, or 2018. And this is in the Moscone Center. To those of you who haven't seen the Moscone Center, huge venue, massive venue, maybe about 2 or 3 blocks. I'm very spatially challenged, but 3 floors. So this is well attended, lots of people. There was a line in every men's room and none in the women's room. So to me, it's funny, but it highlights to me the imbalance in the tech space. And like what Sheri mentioned earlier, there's many facets to this problem. It could be a pipeline problem. There's a confidence. People are saying, you know, women are less confident in applying if they don't meet 100% of the requirements. There's dynamics at home about childcare, about caring for parents. And then there's those job descriptions that naturally discourages certain sectors of our job applicants from applying because of the language that are present in the job descriptions.
Thank you. Sheri.
Yeah, so there's actually a website, and I'm spacing on the link. I'll see if I can dig it up, where you can run a job description through it, and it will tell you if you're using male-oriented language, female-oriented language, or neutral language.
Well, I'm going to use that in a second, Sheri. Sorry to interrupt. I'm going to use, because I loved when you shared it with me, and this is where I'm going to call out Claude in a second. But before I do, when we look at job descriptions, Sheri, does it go beyond gender bias? And if so, what are they?
Well, my goodness, I mean, how many programmers do you know need to be able to stand 4 hours a day, right? I mean, or I saw one job post literally within the last 12 months. So it was after the pandemic started. It was for a head of graphic design, and one of the job requirements was they needed to be able to use a mouse and a keyboard simultaneously. And this, if I named the store, you would know them. I mean, they are that big. So this kind of ableist stuff is just everywhere. And I am on a personal search and destroy mission. Every time I see a job description with something ableist in it, I track down the VP of HR or the chief people officer for that company, and I flame them.
I love it. I love it. I hope you never come running for me or calling for me because I've done everything good. So, but if I don't, you call me out straight away. Claude, before I do show what I'd like to share on my screen, I'd like to address this with you. So when you think of an inclusive job description, what does that actually mean to you?
I think some of the things with a inclusive job description, some of the things that were already mentioned, the language that's being used, making sure that you're gender neutral, inclusive language. So instead of using he, pronouns like they, them, you, I think you is very powerful just because it really kind of directs to the individual, like they feel like you're speaking to them. I've also was reading around studies that certain language might skew towards a certain gender. So like rock star, ninja, guru, kick ass, those types of things tend to be more jaded towards, males. And so someone that might be looking at that might feel that less inclusive when they're looking at that resume. So, using words like collaboration or cooperative, understanding, loyal, are good kind of neutral words to use. If you have to add requirements to a resume, I would say, just list the must-haves. Like sometimes, like one of the images you show, I mean, it was just a whole bunch of stuff. And even if people try to say, oh, well, we'll have the must-haves, or, these are skills that we can be flexible on, or things that you can learn on the job, well, just ignore all that. Like just put the things that are just solely required so that people understand like, hey, what's needed. But I would prefer, instead of listing requirements, to go back to that results focused, thing that I mentioned at the beginning. And then I think listing the salary is a great thing. I think looking at the salary, it maybe shows that a company is being transparent, fair, equal pay, the equity aspect of it, so that, you're just upfront about it. So those are the things that I think would help.
But as rare as listing a salary is these days, I think it's going to be more rare going forward, because what's going to happen is people will have base salaries based on where they're headquartered, and have regional multipliers so that they can hire people across the country. So I see that being less likely to occur because of the pandemic, not more likely.
Yeah, so if we were to, I agree with you, Sheri, because we're doing those types of things as well, just because of, cost of living is different per location. So if we were to expand that, instead of saying like salary range, maybe it could be like what total comp might look like. So maybe looking at whether it's RSUs or other types of things, because some of those things stay pretty stagnant regardless of the location that you're on. So that base salary might change with whatever multiplier is. But I think it's the idea is a candidate getting fair pay, and especially when you talk about the the gap with funds between male versus female, whatever the case may be. It's just trying to think about ways to really kind of close that gap and be as transparent as possible where it makes sense.
So leading on from this, I'm Sheri, apologies for interrupting you, but I'm going to show the tool that you shared with us.
Oh, that's fine.
And Claude, apologies that I'm going to call on Walmart. I want to see how good Walmart are at creating job descriptions. So the good thing is I have these sites already set up, so I don't have to do too much. But before I speak too far, let me actually see if I can do this. Okay, so here we go. Now, I can't see. Let me just move this out of the way. Get in there. All right, so we've got the decoder. So guys, here it is, the gender-decoder.capmapfield.com. And what I've got here is a Walmart job spec. Hey, software engineer 3. All right, we're going to copy and paste this. Look at me go. Okay, copy. And we're going to see how friendly or biased this is. So here we go. What does everyone think? I'm sure it's going to be very neutral. Here we go. This advert is strongly feminine coded. masculine words in this ad and a lot more feminine words in this ad. So I'm going to go back to the presentation and ask for people's thoughts on this. So Claude, why don't you start first? What's your thoughts when you see that?
Well, I guess Walmart is over-indexing some of the goals that they're looking for. I think that's interesting. I think it's interesting, and it's something I'll take a look at that tool and sort of analyze. I mean, we're going through and trying to clear things up. I'm not quite sure what group that was from, but I'll have to take a look at that, man.
I'll send you the link.
I'll have to take a look at that.
Sheri, Emma, what are your thoughts when you see that?
Oh, Marisa said on the chat that there's a requirement for a master's degree. So yeah, why? There's that. I feel that those requirements, like what I said, sometimes there's an upfront filter. And I understand administratively they want to not burden the system with reviewing like thousands and 10,000s of resume, but by the same token, you want the best of the best. Why are you narrowing down your search to those with master's degree? If anything, like Claude, you mentioned earlier that it's really better to just put the basic requirements, what the job will really entail, and then from the pool of candidates, the best candidates that it might take longer, but you know, there's a higher chance you get the best of the applicant pool because you have not applied your filter up front.
I love it. And Sheri, as this was your tool, I'd love to hear your comments when you saw that.
Yeah, we try to run this on all job applications that we put out on VMware. Shameless VMware plug, we have 2,200 jobs open right now. Our company has gone from 25,000 when I started. I think we're at 34,000 now, 2.5 years later. So we are hiring like as fast as we can. You know, I don't think there's not a significant issue to me in having a job description that shows up as being feminine coded. I think you're still going to attract a significant number of male applicants to that. The problem is the other way around. If you have something that's really strongly male focused language, you're not going to get many women who apply to that kind of role.
Okay, brilliant. Firstly, thank you all of you so far. All right, moving on to theme 4. Not that again. Okay. So did you know this is the power of becoming a proactive job seeker? And did you know 83% of job seekers are likely to research company reviews and ratings when deciding on where to apply for a job, and 50 to 80% of jobs are found through networking. Now, this particularly resonates with me, and I'm going to tell you why, guys, because recently I actually started looking for another job, and within 5 weeks, I spoke to 31 different companies. Now, that was my choice, and the reason I did that is because I wanted to decide my future rather than speak to only a couple and maybe get offered 1 or 2, and then I'm kind of left with the conundrum of where do I go? I hadn't dated for 20 years. I'd worked for one company for 20 years. So I thought, well, I'm going to see the whole world, and I'm going to be proactive. I'm going to hustle, and I'm going to see as many people as I can. So I'm deciding my dream rather than anybody else. Now, I know that sounds really tiring, but at the end of the day, I knew from the get-go who I wanted to speak, who I wanted to work for. But you know what? After 5 weeks, that definitely changed. And I'm joining a company that I know, and that's going to be in 4 or 5 months, but I'm joining a company that I know where my, not only today, but also my future lies, but I had to hustle hard. So I'd like to ask the team, what does proactive, is that a bit crazy, or does, you know, what does a proactive job seeker mean to you? You're all on mute. That's why there was no.
Yeah, that's right. You know, I was looking at the the chat here, and Sina had mentioned about, you know, when a job post comes, and you know, whoever posted it, reaching out to them directly. And I really feel that I really feel like networking is the best place to do it. Someone had also posted about, the people, having privilege or having some in, like everyone is capable of, building that relationship. And I think it kind of goes back what Sheri was saying, like investing in the soft skills. If you have soft skills, that emotional intelligence, building that network, building that relationship, building relationships, it allows you to kind of take things on a more personal level, because I've gotten resumes from candidates and it's not anything. It's not like, hey, how you doing? Let's start a conversation. It's just, here's my resume, you need to hire me. I'm like, whoa, wait, kind of what's going on? And it would have been a different approach on, how are you establishing that relationship? And I think that is just such a missing skill set or talent that exists in this industry. So for me, having a candidate or a proactive job seeker, or someone that is actively going through and establishing relationships, building up their network, if they don't have anything, how are they showcasing and keeping their skills sharp and making themselves marketable, helping to kind of build their brand to where instead of being at the mercy of a company, they're helping to drive their career to get what they need. And I know it's doable. It is something that's doable. I've been able to do that in several occasions. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, mate.
I started with less than 500 LinkedIn contacts when I first started my blog 2.5 years ago, and I'm just about to hit 14,500. So it is possible to organically, like you said, Claude, and this is advice that I give to accessibility people all the time, have your elevator pitch down, build your brand, talk about what you bring to the table that's different from what everybody else is bringing to the table. That's how you get jobs. And same thing, like if when people contact me and say, can you tell me when a job is open that fits my skills? I'm like, we've got 2,200 of them open. I'm not your personal job finder. Go out to the career site and show some initiative. So it's really important to not ask people questions that they could find from Google. Save your bullets for the really useful stuff when you need to know something insightful that's not public information.
I love it. And I couldn't agree more. And, after spending a lot of time coaching people who are looking for jobs, the one thing that I would just say to every single person today is, when in doubt, send it out. It is my statement I work with all my recruiters about, if ever they're like, oh, is the candidate right? Or should I do this? Send it out. The worst thing they can do is say, no, they're not interested, or not respond. But the worst you could do, and far worse, is you just not giving yourself that chance. And it kind of like feeds into my next question. Did any of you have, actually, Claude, did you ever have imposter syndrome? And if so, how did you overcome
it? Yes, I did have imposter syndrome. And, to be honest, sometimes I fall into that. I think it's just kind of a natural tendency, an insecurity that might crop up. But for the longest time, I was extremely insecure and actually embarrassed that I didn't have like a formal software engineering degree or computer science degree, and I was in the field of tech. And I always felt like I was lesser than. And not realizing that was an inspiration for others that didn't follow the traditional means, but I didn't realize that until a little bit later on. But through the help of like mentorship, gaining work experience, going through interviews, studying, delivering the results, that slowly built my confidence. I realized that I could literally do anything that I put my mind to, as long as I set realistic expectations, having a clear plan, working hard, and then getting the support, having a good, strong network around me. But yeah, had imposter syndrome, and this is the techniques that I use to overcome it.
Love it. Thank you, Claude. And I'm going to move on, because I want to make sure that we have at least a few questions to ask, to answer for the community. I hope you've asked questions. I haven't checked the chat box. Otherwise, that would be really awkward for all of us. So before I do, in terms of if someone was to find themselves in between jobs, what suggestions do you recommend to help people keep their experience sharp, their resume glowing, and so on?
Well, I'll take that one because I spent a lot of time mentoring people between UI jobs during the pandemic when there were layoffs at the airlines and the hotels and the businesses that were really impacted. The best thing that you can do is to find your favorite nonprofit and volunteer. They can always use people to help them write grants. They can always use people to help them make their UI better, faster, and less barriers and more efficient. So that's the #1 piece of advice that I frequently give out. You can't volunteer in the US to work for a for-profit company for free. That's not allowed under the IRS tax rules, but you can volunteer or do unpaid internships with a nonprofit.
Brilliant. Thank you.
I want to add a little bit more to that. So yeah, I agree with Sheri. Don't be idle. Do something. Volunteer. I want to tell our community that I was in this situation many times in the past. I was consulting before. I was in between jobs many times. I was laid off in 2009, and back then there were no job openings at all. I was looking, and it's empty. But it didn't discourage me from continuously looking week after week. Find out what's the trend in your industry, what's happening, what are companies starting to have an interest in, and from there, you try to learn more. How can you be in that space that you're interested in? Find the right training. So attend webinars like this. It costs free, and you're probably going to learn something. I met many talented folks in these events that led me to other opportunities, that led me to other courses that helped me gain new ways of thinking, and have a growth mindset. Make sure you're open to learning. The world is changing every single day. So make sure you understand what's going on so you can keep up. Oh, and I have one more thing I wanted to add. Ask for feedback. Go contact your former teammates, your former supervisors. Ask them what they think your superpower is. Because I thought I had a superpower. And when I started asking my teammates and my supervisors, it was almost unanimous that my superpower was gaining customer trust. And I didn't think that was a superpower for me. I never saw that. I thought of other things, but get that feedback, because that's how you come across other people, and use that to your advantage. Use that in interviews. Use that in your resume. That's your superpower because other people have seen it.
Amazing. I love that. I love the whole superpower. Can I ask you a question, Emma? I know we're going a bit off something. What did you think your superpower was? I
thought that I was really good at using the language between technical and business. And I know that not everybody in the tech space can talk with programmers and then talk with the business and using their own lingos. I thought that was my superpower. But across the board, they said, you win the trust of customers really quick. I said, I do? I didn't know that, but that's how I came across, and I'll take it. I took it.
Exactly. It's a great skill. Thank you so much, Emma. All right, we're moving on to the final topic before we ask see if we've got some questions from this wonderful community. So obviously a very, very important subject. And I think it's kind of, been a red line throughout the event today. So what role should diversity play in the hiring practices? And did you know, I know I get to read this every time, projected growth from Asian, Hispanic and multiracial groups will turn traditionally underrepresented populations into majority groups by 2044. So with this, and to the group, what does actually diversity mean to you? Is it more than just a race and gender? Sheri, do you want to answer this one?
Well, it had better be, or I'm not going to be hanging around for long. Yeah. We talk about accessibility, that the important thing is to have good representation of people with disabilities in the general employee space, so that people are talking about accessibility when we're not in the room. So like for me, a red flag is companies that don't have disability ERGs. Because if you don't have a disability ERG, chances are your self-identification rate of coworkers with disabilities is going to be much below average, and that does not bode well for building a good accessibility program. So that's those are things that I look for all the time. There's a great study out from Accenture about how much including disability into your D&I initiative adds to the bottom line. So higher profit, higher ROI, lower turnover, those are all associated with just having disability as part of your diversity, equity, and inclusion initiative.
Brilliant, thank you. Claude, as an African-American, could a focus on diverse candidates exclude other qualified candidates from getting a job? Are you on mute on purpose, so because this is quite a sensitive subject?
Sorry, ask that one more time. Could diverse candidates?
Could a focus on diverse candidates exclude other qualified candidates from getting a job?
Yeah, I would say so. I think it's possible based on the intent and the approach that the company is taking when they're sourcing for diverse candidates. So, you know, this is my personal feeling. I think all candidates should have an equal chance at being evaluated for the position. I also feel that companies should be focusing on like the right core skills, you know, a person's ability to learn. I think it was, you know, Emma that was saying like the potential can contribute to the success of the overall team. They want to help achieve the manager's goals. Like these are, you know, kind of these qualities that I feel companies should be looking for, and give a person an opportunity to prove themselves. The problem is that there's not a lot of time that companies spend on that, and they tend to not fully evaluate the talent. So now, if a company is deciding to say, I'm only going to focus on, you know, people of color or females, that's a bias in itself. Like, you can't post a job description and say, I'm only going to hire females, or I'm only going to hire Black men, or whatever the case may be. And you should have a diverse pool that you're looking from. Now, the one problem that I see is that, you know, we're having this problem, like internally, it's like, we need to make sure that we hire more people of color. Well, guess what? There's not a whole bunch of people of color in software engineering in the tech field. And so it's signifying that the population small isn't really there, or the population size isn't there. So that's a bigger problem that needs to be addressed. And it's going back to the beginning. I forgot who had mentioned it on the panel, but it would be nice to see companies actually invest in being an advocate for solving those problems, whether it's apprenticeship, someone had mentioned like the buddy system, or whether it's kind of working with even college or high school students. I mean, shoot, imagine someone, instead of flipping burgers, they can get a job and, you know, start making, you know, some decent money, kind of learning a skill to help invest in that. Like, that art, I feel, is just lost. So, long-winded answer, can focusing on diverse candidate exclude other folks? 100%.
Thank you, mate. And I'm going to ask my final question before we go to the community. Emma, if it's okay with you, I'm going to ask you this. So, is hiring for diversity just a numbers game and used to help improve a company's brand? Or is it just lip service?
So diversity, equity, and inclusion should not ever be a slogan or a checklist. We have seen some companies kind of failing in that regard, in that they are mouthing these words and they are supporting employee resource groups, which is not a bad thing. Don't get me wrong, it's a great thing, but they fall short on every other aspect. So again, I'm a proponent of cognitive diversity. Cognitive diversity is essential to be successful. So you can produce products and services that actually reflects your customer base. It's in the heart of a high-performing team. So there's actually a science behind this, and it's backed by studies on team science, and it's actually included in a book I'm reading. It's called The Flow System. You can Google it. It's on Amazon. And they talk about how team decision, when team decides, or when team deliberate on the next action to do, the more diverse your team is, the more you'll catch your blind spots right away. So it should never be a slogan. It should never be a checklist. A company should really focus on having a cognitively diverse team and organization, because that is, I mean, you can read it everywhere that it's good for business, right? And that is now becoming a slogan too. It should not be. It's really backed by science. It's important in a high-performing team. Think about the time where you were in a high-performing team and tell me what that composition looked like. So
I love it. I hope that was a rhetorical question, because I'm not really great on thinking on the spot, but that's a great question for all of us today. And
I would just add one caveat, which is you have to take special care that what Emma is talking about exists when you're a global organization, because not everybody has the North American mindset about people with disabilities, or people of minority ethnic backgrounds, or even minority religious backgrounds in some countries. So where those things are more frowned upon socially, it's even harder to make sure that they're not just looking at you must interview a woman for every software engineering role, and they're bringing in somebody who's a stenographer and saying, oh yeah, but she interviewed for the software development role, because they want to check the box. It has to be more than a box checking activity. As Emma said, it's just harder to make it more than a box checking activity outside of North America.
Yeah, absolutely. We need to change the world, but we can start with North America, but that's great. Thank you everyone so far. I know we've got a limited amount of time now, but it's because we've had such incredible answers and obviously great questions. But I'm going to go to the chat box and I'm going to try. I know I keep putting myself down, but I'm not an imposter. It's fact that I'm really bad at tech. So I'm going to go to the chat box and see if I've got questions here. If not, I'm going to ask Claude to kind of help me out. So Claude's asked everybody when we talked about people having opportunity, is that true? But I'm going to see if there's questions direct to me. Direct message. I know I should be able to do this. Okay, to Danny. Apologies, everybody. I'm getting there. Okay. Thoughts about ageism and the concept of overqualified. I don't even know if I can actually see this full question. No, I can't. Okay. All right, here we go. As a recruiter, hi. So Marissa Stekti, I hope I've said your name correctly, and apologies if I haven't. Hi, as a recruiter who still asks for cover letters, a piece of advice for job seekers: please take advantage of the opportunity to tell the company why you're a great fit, or why the experience is a totally unrelated career is a great fit for the position you are seeking. Now, that wasn't really a question, but seeing as I kind of think that's actually a great point. What are people's thoughts on cover letters?
I personally don't look at them for myself. No?
And why is that?
Well, it's just the mindset that I have. I choose to get, I like to talk to people. I like to talk to people. I might look at a resume and see a cover letter. It's time, like the time it takes to kind of go through. I'd rather kind of talk to a person, get to know them, figure out what's going on, and spend some time. It takes a little bit longer, but I try to build authentic relationships with the people that I'm with, and I just use it as an opportunity to network. But that's just me. And what I'm looking for is I'm seeking talent.
Okay, brilliant, thank you. I have a question from Diego Gallon Hoffman. There's also an E in there, so apologies. It's hard to quantify growth mindset and potential. So hiring managers prefer to focus on fixed years of experience and past work. As a job applicant, how do you change the conversation and frame it around potential and growth? That is a great question. So any advice from the panelists?
So when I
Okay.
got my very first job in IT, they required 5 years of experience to a minimum of 5 years of experience. I applied with 2 because what have I got to lose? At the interview, they actually pointed out, and fortunately for me, they actually talked to me. Why are you applying? We were requiring 5 years. I said, because I know as much as everyone over here. I said that at a certain point, there's a learning runway, but at a certain point, you all equalize. There's only so much that you learn. So now it's a matter of practice and techniques. I was applying for a programming position, and I just displayed my enthusiasm to learn. And I asked about the company's programs to support continuous learning. And the HR manager really liked that. And they actually hired me. I was the one-off of their, I don't know, their hired people at that point in time that had the least number of years of experience. So I would really, again, I will focus on I think Claude mentioned it. What value do you bring to the table? Understand the value that you brought in your previous organizations and bring that to your interview. Now, I know getting an interview is hard enough, but keep plugging away. There was in 2018, I think I was applying for jobs. I applied over, 7 months in over 75 companies. And I have a spreadsheet tallying which ones I like and which ones I don't like. And it's a learning experience for you too. It's about them learning about you as much as you learning about them. So I mark off those that are not friendly to my age or my gender or my values. So I continue to pursue those that are aligned with my values.
Exactly. I love that. I love that. Thank you. Look, before we shoot off, Sheri, I'm just going to ask you this question. I know I mentioned it before. So thoughts about ageism and the concept of overqualified. Is there such a thing?
Well, I think there is such a thing in the context of, you have a budget, right? And people's salaries tend to go up as they get more experience. And so it could just be that you don't have enough money for a candidate that's got too many skills for that job. And on the flip side, people are concerned, well, if somebody who should be making 150,000 accepts a job where they're making 90,000, how long are they going to stay around for? So that's really where the discrimination comes into play from being overqualified. I don't think it's necessarily about the age, but it's about the concern of the departure when things are getting good. Every turnover at a company, bad hire, or somebody just leaves for greener pastures, costs on average 5 months of that person's salary to the company. And the weird thing is that nobody recognizes it because it's not a check somebody's writing. It's a productivity hit. It's not on the bottom line, but it still shows up in reduced quality and quantity of work. And then the problem is, if you start overloading your other employees, it makes them more likely to quit as well. So you kind of get caught in this negative feedback cycle. So, I think if you're going to hire somebody who is overqualified for the job, you want to have an honest conversation about them, about what the growth opportunities are. VMware is very well known for saying, when we hire somebody, we want them to stay at VMware for the rest of their lives. So, for example, we have programs where every 3 to 5 years, people can go on a field trip and try another job in a different department. No questions asked. And then at the end, they either go back to their old job or they stay at their new job, because that's what VMware wants. They want, qualified people happy in whatever role that they happen to be in. They don't want people bailing out because they feel stagnant, that they're stuck in accounting for the rest of their lives when they really want to work on accessibility or customer support.
That's amazing. So Sheri, what you're saying indirectly is you're going to be at VMware for the rest of your life.
I don't know that I'm going to be there for the rest of my life, maybe the rest of my working life. But
that's a fair comment.
there's a lot of really great opportunities, and VMware recognizes that keeping people happy is more important than keeping people in a specific job.
Wow, that is amazing. And I think you plugged VMware very well there. With 2,200 jobs, we've got enough people on here who can fill those. So thank you so much. And look, I know that we're not in together, but a round of applause for the panelists today. Thank you, guys. I know that everyone's mute, so it feels a bit weird that I'm alone here, but I know all of you are shouting.
You gotta do sign language applause.
There you go. Okay.
Do this.
Boom.
Yeah.
There you go. I got taught. I love it. I'm learning. Thank you.
You got an accent.
So thank you everybody today. I know this has been a lot, there's been a lot condensed in a short amount of time, and I really appreciate everybody for joining. I know it's late in Austin or wherever you are in the world. Please follow us. Obviously, you know, if you're part of the hub, fantastic. Please make sure you sign up if you aren't. Please watch or follow LinkedIn. We'll be sharing a lot of stuff that we're constantly doing, and any upcoming information, and obviously the happy hour, which I'd love to join. So if I'm not there, please have a drink on my behalf. And if you are looking for a job, we do have the Hire Me program. I know I'm plugging myself here, but I love to help. I love to give back, and I'd love to help any of you who are looking for a job, because I know how tough it is. But I'll let you all go and have a lovely evening. And thank you again, Emma, Sheri, and Claude, for your wonderful time and answers. And everyone, have a lovely evening. It's been a delight.